Jim Smithwick will lead us in the national anthem, and then please remain standing as Ellen leads us in the French anthem. Jim Brown will now lead us in the invocation.
Please pray with me. Dear God, Father of us all, we'd like to give you a big shout out for a beautiful spring day today. Too many times we focus on our own problems, and it's wonderful to be reminded by the wonderful world that you have given to us to live in. We thank you for this nation, for the opportunity to live in freedom and dignity, and opportunity for all men and women. We thank you for this beautiful state of South Carolina that we call our home, and the wonderful people in it. We thank you for this club and the opportunity to join together with Rotarians all over the world in service above self. And we appreciate the binds that we have with our friends from France and throughout the world to celebrate and encourage peace and understanding among us all. Again, thank you for a beautiful day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. Please be seated. Vancy will welcome our visiting Rotarians and guests. While he's on his way up, if everybody would please recognize the cart bucket on the table. That money goes to aiding Alzheimer's research. Also after this meeting, Kay Shaw and Becky Earhart will be in the lobby to discuss Paul Harris points. We have several members who are nearing their next Paul Harris recognition, and Kay and Becky will be in the lobby if you have any questions.
Thank you. I'm Vancy. As the official greeter, I would like to say, Messieurs les ambassadeurs, bienvenue à notre club, à notre ville. Dans ma jeunesse, j'habitais en France, par le sud de France. La vie là-bas, c'est très riche. La vie ici aussi. Je suis très heureuse que vous êtes ici. From the Capital Club, we have Attorney Thompson. From the Forest Acres Club, we have Hal Peacock. You want to stand? Oh, hold on. Welcome. And from the 5 Points Club, we have Christian de Pré-Bijou. Welcome. And if you could please help me out with the mic to Rotarians with guests, if you would please stand and introduce your guest.
I have 2 guests today visiting from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I have Gardner Watson. He is a 4th grader at Charleston Day School. And Perry Watson. He is a 1st grader at Trident Academy.
Today I have with me a friend of 67 years, Gérard, a private practicing lawyer and advisor of finance.
I'm Carrie Powers from Free Times, and I brought with me Sue Miller today. She is my newest account executive, and it's her first day at work, so of course I'm going to drag her to Rotary.
I'm Jack Sloan, and my guest today is Ty Watts, who is the most excellent counselor for the at-large seat in Columbia City Council. Our voting time's coming up, though.
Thank you, and I'm Kirk Johnston. The Johnston family reunion was scheduled for May the 3rd, but we decided to have it a little early. So I'd like to introduce my brother and sister-in-law, Harry and Mary Johnson, if you stand, from Charleston, South Carolina. My brother, Johnny, and sister-in-law, Tracy, from Walterboro, South Carolina. And finally, my brother, Dick, and his wife, Carol, my sister-in-law, for many years, but she sure doesn't look it. They're from Columbia, South Carolina. Welcome very much.
My name is Dot Royal, and I'd like to introduce my guest. I have one that will be inducted next week as a member, so I guess today she is told us. This is Lavinia Cox. And here, please welcome Elaine to our club. Susan Elkins, who's the chancellor at the Colorado College at USC.
I'd like to introduce my own guest, Hal, if you could stand up. Hal is a South Carolinian by birth. We both defected to the Virginia Military Institute, where we were roommates, and he is an associate at Wilson Kibler. Thank you. Welcome.
So thank you to our visiting Rotarians for being here and all our Rotarians who brought guests. We really appreciate you taking time out of your Monday to be here. John Bacon is going to come up and talk to us about the golf tournament.
I'm pleased to be able to squeeze up here with all these distinguished guests today. I'm here to talk to you about fun and silliness again. We have the sign-up sheets for our golf tournament on your table, and I want to remind you today that the price is only $80 a player. That's half what it was last year. So what that means is you can bring a guest for the same price that you paid last year to play. So we encourage you to do that. We encourage you to bring a guest. We encourage you to bring someone who might be interested in joining our fellowship here at our club. So April 13th, Tom Gammon will be in the back corner as you leave. If you want to take this, fill it out, drop it off, or have any questions you want to talk to Tom about, please do so. Time is a little close on us, so we've got to work fast to get this all put together. Also, there's an opportunity to be a whole sponsor for $100. So I hope that you will consider that as well. Several people have already committed to join us as whole sponsors, and the money we raise through that will go to another project with Harvest Hope Food Bank at the end of in the fall sometime. So thank you, and we look forward to lots of folks signing up. Jack?
Now, is that in lieu of the Rotary meeting?
Yes, there is no Rotary meeting that week, so this will be in place of the meeting. And to remind you again that we'll have a nice dinner. The dinner is paid for through the money you would have paid for the luncheon. So you can join us, no additional cost. If you don't play golf, you come out and have dinner and just enjoy the fellowship. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Regina will now come up and lead us in health and happiness.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If you believe in the power of prayer, let me see you raise your hand. Good. I see all these hands up. So I'm expecting all of you who raise your hands to lift up Dot's son John in prayer. He's got a challenge right now, so please lift him up in prayer. Where's John Monk? I know I saw him come in. All right. John Monk received the veteran journalist John Monk received the J. Bender Award for Assertive Journalism. This award is presented annually to the journalist who works in distinguished by fair-minded, thought-minded, relentless reporting. So congratulations, John. Joan Hoffman, where are you, Joan? Did she leave?
No, she's right there.
Okay, so Joan's son Davis, who's a 5th grader at East Point Academy, placed 3rd place in the state for Mandarin language competition, and he competed against college students and got 3rd place. So congratulations to Davis. Okay, where's our very own Glenn Ward? Where you at, Glenn? Okay, so Glenn Ward will be the speaker this week for the South Carolina Prayer Breakfast. It's scheduled for March the 18th at 7:30. It's at the DoubleTree by Hilton. If you want tickets, please see Bob Crutchfield. He can take care of that. The last announcement I have is that, how many Wofford graduates are in here? Okay, so now I understand why I was harassed to make this announcement. That Wofford is going to the big dance per David, and they're playing Arkansas this Thursday at 9:50 p.m. for all you Wofford folks. I announce. Go So it looks like I have 2 minutes. Okay, so Rotary, March is Literacy Month for Rotary. So for those of you who just need a little refresher, let me tell you what that is. Literacy lies not only in the ability to read or write, but rather in an individual's capacity to put those skills to work in shaping the course of his or her own life. So you know I can't just say that and not give her something entertaining. So, here you go. Forrest Gump goes to heaven. The day finally arrived, Forrest Gump dies and goes to heaven. He is at the pearly gates met by St. Peter himself. However, the gates are closed and Forrest approaches the gatekeeper. St. Peter says, "Well, Forrest, it's certainly good to see you. We've heard a lot about you. I must inform you that place is filling up fast and we've been administering an entrance examination for everyone. The tests are short, but you have to pass them before you get into heaven." Forrest Gump replies, "It sure is good to be here, St. Peter, sir, but nobody ever told me about an entrance exam. Sure hope this test ain't too hard. Life was big enough test as it was." St. Peter goes on, "Yes, I know, Forrest, but the test is only 3 questions. Here's the first one. What days of the week begin with the letter T? The second, how many seconds are there in a year? And third, what is God's first name?" Forrest leaves to think the questions over. He returns the next day and sees St. Peter's, who waves him up and says, "Now that you have had a chance to think the questions over, tell me your answers." Forrest says, "Well, the first one, how many days in the week begins with the letter T? Shucks, that one's easy. That'd be 2, today and tomorrow." The saint opens his eyes wide and exclaims, "Forrest, that is not what I was thinking, but you have a good point. And I guess I didn't specify, so I'll give you credit for that answer. How about the next one?" asked St. Peter's. "How many seconds in a year?" "Now that one's harder," says Forrest. But I thunk and thunk about it, and I guess the only answer can be 12. Astounded, St. Peter says, 12, 12? Forrest, how in heaven's name could you come up with 12 seconds in a year? Forrest says, shucks, there's gotta be 12. January 2nd, February the 2nd, March 2nd, and all. Hold on, he interrupts. Hold on, interrupts St. Peter's. I see where you're going with this, and I see your point. Thought that wasn't quite what I had in mind, but I'll give you credit for that one too. Let's go to the next and the final question. Can you tell me God's first name? Sure, Forrest replied, it's Andy. Andy, exclaimed an exasperated and frustrated St. Peter's. Okay, I can understand how you came up with that answer to my first two questions, but just how in the world did you come up with the name of Andy, for the first name of God? Shucks, that was the easiest one of all, Forrest replied. I learned it from a song. Andy walks with me, Andy talks with me, Andy tells me that I am his own. So I wasn't making fun of literacy, but this is Literacy Month, so I challenge each one of us to find somebody that we can encourage this week that might be struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Regina has done a great job this year with our Health and Happiness Committee and volunteered Friday to fill in today when we had a vacancy. So we thank her for her service and all she does for the club. Next, Hal Stevenson is going to come up and talk to us about LeaderCast. Hal attended the event in 2013 and is going to talk about his experience and reasons for attending.
Thank you, John. Stupid is as stupid does, I guess. Yep. How many people have seen Forrest Gump? If you don't mind, I would like to, before I begin, just have a moment of silence. John Rainey was a friend of many of us in the room, and it was a surprising loss of him. If we could bow our heads, just a moment of silence, please. Thank you for that. John asked me to come and share my thoughts on LeaderCast. I went a couple years ago when they had Jack Welch and Mike Krzyzewski and John Maxwell, Condoleezza Rice. They always have these really outstanding speakers. I was a little bit overwhelmed by the idea of going for a full day. But as you recall, 2013 was not near the business environment that it is today, and I think that the reality of the recession for me caused me to rethink some of the things that I had held up to that time. One was that I knew what I was doing, and that I was a great leader of my company because my company was not going so well. So I really did have a gut check. Part of it was I had become the president-elect of a Rotary Club and was very concerned about that. And so I think that one of the things for me of going to this conference was just humbling myself and realizing that I did not have all the answers. I think that's part of what we try to do as Rotarians, remind each other that it's about servant leadership, serving others. I think the other side of it is that there's a lot I have to learn. And so for those of you that are here today, I think there is, what are we, John, maybe halfway through ticket sales? I went ahead and got a little bit of notes that I took, and I thought I'd just share those with you briefly. What you do is more important than what you say with your employees or any kind of team that you're on. You got to focus on we and not me. For many of us, that's a hard thing to do. Focus on the we and not me. Some of you will not be surprised about this, but continuous communication, which I know that many of you that know me, I don't stop communicating. The second part of it is in clarity. So I have a little bit of problem with that. So that was helpful for me to try to shut up sometimes and just let people try to get it on their own. Finally, I think it's about motivating the next generation of leadership. Many of you think, well, I don't need to go, I can't give up a whole day. I would just say, I think you do. But if you don't, I know you know younger folks that are in your organizations or perhaps your church, your elder board or your deacon board or just people running the Sunday school class, because it really is a difficult environment today to lead. It's not about, how we think of ourselves, but how we react to others. And so I would encourage you, as we go into this home stretch, to let's either come or send. Either one to the leader cast. It's a great thing you're doing, John. This is so we can go have fun playing golf this year and not raise money that way. But Rotary is in transition. You all know that. We're trying to let the next generation know what we want to do. Collaboration, cooperation, and serving the community and doing something and leaving a mark on the world is what this generation is interested in. Let's help them be there. Let's support the leader cast this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hal. It was a pleasure to spend that day in 2013. There was Hal and about 4 other Rotarians. We attended the event that was held at Shannon Baptist that year. We didn't know what we were getting into. I have a leadership team. We lead a business of 83 employees. I went in 2013 as myself to scout out the event. I went by myself, was blown away by the content that was presented to me. That the next year in 2014, they did not have the event in Columbia, but we took 5 of our key leaders for the organization, drove to Charlotte for the day to attend it. In leadership positions, a lot of us end up in leadership roles, whether it's in the business or community or organizations. We're not really sure how we get there, but sometimes we don't realize the stewardship to others and the responsibility of those that follow us that comes with that position. LeaderCast is a day where you can step back and refocus the position that you've been blessed with and how you can use that to benefit others. With that, I'd like to call Congressman Wilson.
Fellow Rotarians, it is always great to be back with you, and I'm so proud of the extended Johnson family. This is amazing. But I am really grateful. In this session of Congress, I've been elected the chairman of the co-chair of the French caucus. It's really a reflection on the people of South Carolina. We should be ever grateful that France was our first ally in the American Revolution. People should know, too, that Marquis de Lafayette actually arrived to assist in the revolution at Georgetown, South Carolina. Additionally, people should know that Baron de Kalb, his uncle, was a leader in the Battle of Camden and sadly is actually buried just here in Camden. So there's such a relationship. And then those of us of French Huguenot heritage are very grateful to point out Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, is of Huguenot heritage. Then we flash forward to the present. Ambassador Araud and I just completed visiting the Michelin plant, which had been recruited by Governor Edwards. But today, with over 2 million square feet, with over 2,000 employees, it's the largest single complex of worldwide of Michelin. Additionally, we now, South Carolina is the leading exporter of tires of any state in the Union. We're on our way to Arriva, which is another French company that's very technologically advanced, building the mixed oxide fuel fabrication facility at the Savannah River site, converting weapons-grade plutonium into fuel. Again, our relationship of jobs. And then finally, it's the future. We're always working together as allies. We're allies in the global war on terrorism. And of course, France, our sympathy for the people of Paris, for the recent attack there, but they were actually ahead in many respects in facing the threat of radical Islam. To introduce the ambassador, we have a fellow Huguenot, Rusty DePass.
I want to call attention first to the fact that we have some visitors with us who have not been introduced. They are here with the ambassador, and one is Heather Kircher-Clavet, who is head of communications and press attaché for the Consulate General of France. Where is Heather? If you would stand. And also the Consul General, Denis Barbet. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And also a few people from from what we call the Michelin plant, but it's really Michelin, I think, in France. And that's Pierre Leclerc, Steve Everett, David Stafford, and Kathy Lyles, if you would stand. While I'm recognizing people, I want to say that Carol Johnston was my neighbor when I was growing up in Rock Hill, and she's as cute today as she was when I was growing up. And I won't tell you her age, or mine. We're very pleased today to have with us the ambassador to France, from France to the United States. Monsieur Gérard Araud is a career diplomat who was appointed ambassador to the United States on July 23, 2014. He was born in Marseille and graduated from the Institut d'études politiques de Paris and other French schools of administration, technology, and economics. He has served at least twice with the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ambassador Araud joined the diplomatic corps in 1982 and has served with the French delegation to NATO, as ambassador of France to Israel, head of the permanent mission of France to the United Nations, and 4 times as president of the United Nations Security Council. During his career, the ambassador has developed a very specialized knowledge in the areas of the Middle East and strategic and security issues. He was the French negotiator on the Iranian nuclear issue from 2003 to 2006. In the Security Council, he contributed to the adoption of resolutions on Libya, the Ivory Coast, the Congo, Mali, the Central African Republic, and participated in debates on the crises in Syria and Ukraine. Monsieur l'ambassadeur, soyez le bienvenu en la Caroline du Sud et au Club Rotary de Columbia. Mesdames et messieurs, je vous présente l'ambassadeur de la France, l'honorable Gérard Araud.
Thank you very much. You know, you can ask the question, I think that from being from South Carolina, you are not wondering why I'm coming to South Carolina. But actually, I'm coming here because of Congressman Joe Wilson. You know, because when I visited his office, the first thing I found in his office was, you know, the statue of Bibendum from Michelin. You know, really, I said. And suddenly, you know, we discussed, and we had a nice talk, as usual, with Congressman Wilson, and I discovered how important were the French investments in South Carolina. So Congressman Wilson and myself, we are doing the same thing. We are defending jobs in America. He's doing it because he's a US congressman. I'm doing it simply because French investment in the US, and especially in South Carolina, are simply good for French economy. You know, profitable investments in the US, French profitable investments in the US are good for French corporations. So in a sense, we are sharing the same goal, defending jobs in South Carolina. And I was referring to Michelin, but as Congressman Wilson said, there is also the very big Areva facility, you know, in Savannah River, which is quite impressive, which quite costly and technological, very advanced. And you know, I was looking at some figures. More than 30 French companies are providing some 16,000 jobs at 74 sites across the states. And again, I'm going to be, I think I should be, I have a contract with Michelin as a good advertiser. You know, really, I should be rewarded, you know, really. And Michelin has, in South Carolina, 9,000 of its 17,000 employees in the US. It is the largest French investment in the state, And 2,300 of these jobs are right around the corner in Lexington country, where the company has invested at least $1.2 billion. And but that's also, I think, the reflection, as I was explained while visiting with Congressman Wilson the facility, the Michelin facility, of the environment, the business environment in these states. It's a business-friendly state, and it pays. And I think that's a message that I will bring to my authorities and also to the French corporations. I'm here on a really friendly visit. From time to time to cross the Beltway. It's refreshing, actually. So I am out of Washington, D.C. In a sense. It's also to learn, to discover the U.S., to try to understand this fascinating country, which is so important in the life of the world and especially in the life of France. We have our relationship, has always been a very intense relationship. I should say it's a family relationship, which means there have been a lot of squabbles. Like any good family, really, we have usual squabbles, and after that we are back together. It happens that we are through a period where we are really back together. We are facing the same threat, and we are fighting together. In a sense, as a new ambassador, it's a bit worrying because our relationship is so good that actually it can't improve, but it can worsen. So for the ambassador, it's not a very good prospect. So I do my best at least to keep it at the present level. We are facing the same threat. As you know, in January, in Paris, we have been the target of two terrorist attacks, one against journalists and one against Jews in a kosher grocery store. Actually, of course, we have been surprised by the attack, but we were expecting an attack sooner or later because we have identified very clearly for the last decade the rising threat of radical Islam. We have in France I guess, a community of, out of 65 million of inhabitants, something like 5 or 6 million of Muslims. 99.9% of this population is peaceful and hardworking, but we have a few thousand people who have been radicalized, a few thousand. And of course, we are a democracy, so you don't arrest people only because they have radical opinion. And at the same time, there are a few thousand, so it's impossible to monitor them 24/7. You need 12 agents to monitor one person 24/7. So a few thousand, you try to imagine. So the question is whether these radical people who cross the line from radical opinion to terrorism. And that's the challenge that we have been facing. On the top of that came the war in Syria. Thousands of Europeans, of young Europeans, came to Syria to take part in the war against Bashar al-Assad. Thousands. For France, it's 1,400. We have identified 1,400 French coming to Syria, fighting there on their way back, on their way to Syria. It means that these people will come back radicalized and with a military training. So we have known, as I've said, we had all the elements of terrorism on our territory. On the top of that, also, it happens that these radical people, radicalized youth, or their youth, actually are also rapidly anti-Semitic. And so we had several anti-Semitic attacks, one in Belgium, the Jewish Museum in Brussels, one in the city of Paris, in the city of Toulouse in the south of France, where 7 people were killed, 3 soldiers, 2 of them being Muslims, by the way, and 3 Jews at the entrance of a school. So we have been protecting the Jewish institutions for some time. But as I have said, it's possible to protect a synagogue. You don't protect a kosher grocery store. You don't think of it. So the attack should come, and the attack came. Why did it come in France? I think basically because we have the first Jewish community out of the US, and we have the first Muslim community in Europe. So it makes France as I would say, a frontline country. It's also the fact is that most of the French Muslims are Arabs, which means they are very sensitive to what is happening in the Arab world. By definition, they are listening to the Arab TV and Arab radio, while Muslims in UK are very much from Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and in Germany from Turkey. So it's a bit different. So we have had these attacks. The threat is still there. It's obvious that the threat is there. We are reinforcing our means of defense. We have taken bills, one for depriving people from their passport if they want to leave, because we have the problem very often the families are coming to us and said, my son or my daughter are really getting crazy because of internet, and I will come to the topic of internet, please do something. And as they were over 18 years old, previously we could do nothing. They could leave the territory, really. Again, thanks to this bill, we can deprive them from their passport if there is a suspicion that they can go to a terrorist field. And when coming back, another bill allows us to arrest them, to investigate what they have done and why they have left the territory and why they have gone to countries like Syria or Iraq. But again, you go to the gate of Paris and you take a bus, $100, 36 hours later you are in Istanbul, Turkey, you don't need a visa, and in Turkey you vanish, and eventually you go to Syria. So the threat is there, and we are engaged obviously into a long-term war against terrorism. On the US side, of course, we have been discussing, we are working very well with the US. According to the figures we were given, we have 1,400 French going to Syria. For the moment, you have on the American side, you have identified 150 Americans who are back from Syria, which means that you have on the ground, I guess, 2 or 3 dozens of Americans fighting in Syria. So they will come back also, but obviously the scale of the threat is very different from the one the Europeans we are facing. So law enforcement, of course. We have also to work to face the issue of radicalization. And there we are bumping into the very touchy topic, especially in the US, of internet and freedom of speech. If you Google, if you are a college boy or girl, and if you are asked to make a paper on the Holocaust, on the Jewish genocide, you Google Holocaust, and you'll see that the 3rd or the 4th site will be a denial site, a site denying that the Holocaust exists. And try to imagine a boy or a girl who is 13 years old or 14 years old looking at Google will consider that all the sites are the same, really they have the same value. So that's an example. If you Google ISIL, which is, as you know, the acronym of the terrorist group in Iraq and Syria, which is committing the atrocities you see that you'll have dozens of sites which are propaganda sites for ISIL. And again, try to imagine a teenager, facing these sites, and as you know, teenagers are spending hours in front of the internet. So I know that you have the First Amendment in the US, but that's something that we have to face. Really, the internet has become a deadly weapon. the internet is contributing to the radicalization of fragile or young people. And after that, really, we saw it with young girls teenager girls from Britain. 3 of them left Britain to go to Syria. And frankly, their daily life was quite normal. They had no reason of resentment. But apparently, through internet, they were convinced that they had to go and join the jihad. The French Minister of the Interior was in Washington, and after that he flew to California to meet the major internet providers and to tell them, listen, internet is creating fabulous opportunities, but it's also creating a new type of society. It's a new relationship between us. So you have some responsibilities. It's not possible that you say simply that freedom of speech, whoever wants to say something can say something. We have succeeded to forbid child pornography. We have done it. Actually, really, child pornography is forbidden. And if you go to Google, really, or Google or the other providers, of course, the algorithm of the system has been changed so that really child pornography, it becomes very difficult to pass through the different screenages. So we have to do something about also terrorism and radicalism. Of course, it's quite difficult. You can define child pornography quite easily. It's difficult to define what is propaganda or call for terror or call for jihad. But I think that we need to work together. So the internet providers have accepted to come to Paris in April and to discuss the idea of a code of conduct. So some basic rules. We are not looking for regulations. We are looking for some rules of decency. During the Paris attack, one of the policemen actually was injured, and he was killed at blank point by one of the terrorists. And there was a camera there, and it went to YouTube. And frankly, it took 5 hours to the French authorities to get this video out of YouTube. Try to imagine, the terrorists killing, really the policeman. So that's something that shouldn't happen again. Really, again, also the burning of the Jordanian pilot, which was an incredible atrocity. Because you say it's awful and you don't look at it, but you have fragile teenagers who are looking at it and who consider it's exciting. So we are not going to go into censorship. We are not going to regulate this incredible source of creativity, energy that is internet, but we need to work together to have, a code of conduct to fight radicalization and radicalization. Last point, and I will answer the question if you want to ask questions. I think, again, we are all facing the same threat. Of course, because of the geography, it's a bit different. As I've said, it's less dangerous here than it's dangerous now in London or Paris. The head of the British MI5 was saying recently that an attack in London is highly likely. It will come. But at the same time, of course, we are all targeted for the same reasons. It's because we are Western democracies. And they don't make a difference on the basis of the nationality. One of the, we are reaching incredible levels of atrocity. Apparently, one of your journalists was beheaded. Who was beheaded? Apparently, was beheaded by a French terrorist. One of these 1,400 French who came to Syria. And for the top of that, this French man apparently was not an Arab, was a convert, who has the very French name, convert to Islam, and went to Syria. Recently, we have discovered, this jihadi John, this UK citizen, who apparently has beheaded a lot of victims in Syria. And the last straw was, there was a child, some 12, 13 years old, was seen, shooting somebody, killing somebody, of course, in front of the video. And we think that this child could be actually a French child. We have not identified him, but we think he could be a French child. So we are really facing incredible atrocities which are threatening everything that is dear to us. But let's fight it together, because not only because we are the same fight, but also because it's our common values. We are fighting together, the US and the French, in Africa, where the French have deployed 3,000 soldiers to fight against Islamic terrorists in what the region called the Sahel region, and 3,000 soldiers, and the Americans are providing us intelligence and also tactical airlift. We, the French, we are taking part in the strikes, of course, air strikes against the jihadists in Syria, and we have deployed an aircraft carrier in the Gulf for the military operations. So that's the military side, and we are fighting. We have to work on the law enforcement. We have to work also, last point, how to speak and to work with the Muslim states. Because the Muslim states, they are the front line, they are the first victims, and they are the breeding ground. So how to work with them so that we can deliver the right message to the Muslim population. And that's not very easy. For instance, we have the problem of the training of the imams, the Muslim clergy, and how to train Muslim clergy which is able to live in a Western democratic country. It means, we need a specific training. You are not the same clergy whether you operate in Saudi Arabia and operate in France. The values are not exactly the same, especially for the ladies, but not only. So that's also, it's a long-term endeavor. It's really a long-term endeavor, which means that unfortunately on the short term, the threats will still be there. But I think that on the long term, we can be sure that we are strong of our common values. We went through previous challenges. My country has been invaded and devastated 3 times in 70 years. We are quite a resilient country. We are still the 5th economy in the world. We don't have any natural resources, but wine and cheese. I'm not that sure that it's enough in the modern economy. No, but I want, so thank you very much. But before, because I was quite gloomy, really, so I don't want to be gloomy to the last point, the last minute. I want to finish my speech first by thanking you to be here, thanking of course the Rotary for its hospitality, and again thanking Congressman Wilson. But I wanted simply to tell you an opening joke as closing. I don't know if you know the difference between a diplomat and a lady. When a lady, it's very French, really, so really I'm not sure it sells very well in America. When a lady says no, she means maybe. When she says maybe, she means yes. And when she says yes, she's not a lady. When a diplomat says yes, it means maybe. When he says maybe, it means no. And when he says no, he is not a diplomat. I have an addition. There is a third one. Because I saw that when arriving in Columbia Airport that you are a military-friendly place. So when a military says yes, he means yes. When he says no, he means no. And when he says maybe, he's not a military.
Mr. Ambassador, I wouldn't term your address as gloomy. It was straightforward, and for that I applaud you very much. The question that I had, we've had drones reported flying over the White House and various points in Washington. There have been reports of drones flying over the Eiffel Tower and other points of interest in Paris. Are the two countries working together to connect the dots on these drones and what the possibility of these flights might be?
For us, and I don't know for the Americans, we are not that worried about these drones. We are worried and not worried. It means on the very short term, we are not worried. We think that these drones are more or less a joke, or people having, now you can have a very small drone and playing with it. And, in a sense, it's making at the expense of the gendarme with the police, really. And in France, we love to do this sort of game with the police. But, of course, it's extremely worrying beyond this small incident, because it shows that very soon, or maybe right now, anybody will be able, or any terrorist group will be able to operate drones. You have also the question of the drones, which are operated very close to an airport. We have had incidents where suddenly a plane felt threatened by a drone. So there is all the question about, again, the regulation of drones. Really, we will have to face it. We will have to define together a common regulation of drones. People can't operate drones the way they really, without any limitation. So that's certainly something that we will have to face.
What's going to happen with Greece?
There is, if I may explain what happened in Greece. Greece was admitted to the Eurozone in 2001. So before coming to the Eurozone, it had this national currency, which means that they were more or less getting loans at 10 or 12%. They were admitted to the Eurozone, so overnight they could could get loan at 2%. So basically, during 10 years, the Greek economy has been an economy under cocaine. Really, because 2%, really. So it has been totally artificial. The Greek economy has been artificially pushed up. Basically, the problem was that it was a bubble. And when came the crisis of 2008 or 2009, the bubble exploded. And suddenly people realized that Greece had more than 200% of its GDP in debts. So what to do? Germany, who is economically now the dominant economy in Europe, decided that the Greeks had really, in a sense, had to pay for it and had to go through an austerity policy. What the Greeks did in the last 5 years is a loss of 20% of their GDP. They have been suffering as much as the US have suffered during the crisis of 1929. It's incredible. You go to Greece, shops are closed, people are really, I have a lot of Greek friends, people are crying, it's terrible. It's really an incredible suffering. So at some moment, the Greek electors said, enough is enough. So they elected a government who basically decided that enough is enough in terms of austerity. So we have now, we have a sort of poker game. On one side, the Germans, on the other side, the Greeks. Greek realism against German flexibility. Two qualities, national qualities. Really. So in a sense, the Greeks say, if you are not nice with me, I leave the euro, and if I leave the euro, it's the beginning of the crisis. Why? Because people say Greece has left the euro, so tomorrow it will be Portugal, it will be Ireland, and there will be a rush of the markets. The Germans say, you want to leave the euro? Leave the euro. I don't care, because now I'm sure that we are able to protect Portugal and Ireland. So it's a poker game. And again, in a poker game, the problem is at some point, people can make a mistake and fall from the cliff. That's more or less where we are. You can find a compromise. You know, basically, you can, you know, the Greeks are now paying so much, you know, really, the budget, the Greek budget has a surplus of 5 points of the GDP to reimburse the debt. 5 points of the GDP, which is huge. So you can find a compromise saying that instead of refunding your debt on 30 years, you refund it on 50 years. Instead of 1%, it will be 0.5%, because now the Greek debt it's sovereign debt. It's held by the states. The private debt, there is no private debt anymore. So you can find a good arrangement. But again, as usual in the human stories, there are the feelings. So the Greeks, there is the anti-German feeling, which is simmering in Greece. As I have said, the Greeks are furious, but they are also from time to time a bit clumsy. The Germans are inflexible. So if there was not this element of irrationality, I would say we'll find, as usual, an agreement, and we muddle through, and Greece will remain part of the Union. You know, between Greece and Germany, or Greece and France, actually, there is no more difference than between Alabama and Massachusetts in terms of GDP. It's the same difference. No, really, it's the same difference. But the difference that you have is you have a federal state. So the federal state is organizing transfers that nobody more or less, you don't see it, but it allows, the survival of the union, really. And the second element, of course, is that when you are working in Alabama, it's much easier to go and work, elsewhere in the US than it's from Greece to Germany or to Greece to Netherlands because of the language. So that's the difference. We have a common currency, and we don't have a federal state, which frankly doesn't make really a lot of sense.
Appreciation of your time for being here. Thank you for being here. For you providing us your perspective on some of the issues in the world and ways that you are seeking to sort out the inspiration of some of those problems at the root. Congressman Wilson, we're thankful now that you have brought a second leader, international leader here to our club to give us perspective on world issues. We're also appreciative that you brought out some of the roots, historical roots that tie our two countries together. Thank you. President Mark, next week's program?
Yeah, next week's speaker is Bill Kirkland. He's going to be here to talk about the USC incubator and the recent announcement on the IBM deal. Bill Kirkland.
Thank you. For sake of time, we will pass music. Have a great week. The board will be meeting over here, following the meeting.